What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. A lot to get to. We're in the middle of the sports cluster with Arkansas football, spring football, baseball, of course, in SEC play, and, of course, March Madness with the NCAA Tournament. We're going to talk about some things that we've seen so far in spring football. I've watched probably over 10 hours of practice now, all 5 practices in full. I've probably seen somewhere around 125 live tackle scrimmage plays. They're going to do some more scrimmaging on Thursday. But I just want to talk a little bit about what I've seen from each position group since there are so many new guys. We're going to bring Connor Goodson on also to talk about the NCAA Tournament, Arkansas and Kansas. And, that'll be the 2 main topics today. Get your questions in. We'll answer those if we have time. All that and more on today's episode of Hawg Sports Live. Arkansas opens at plus 4.5 right now on the Bet Saracen app. The money line is 185. Oh, nope, it's just moved. It's moved recently. It moved to 5 now. Arkansas is plus 5 now on the Bet Saracen app. I saw earlier they've got a ton of different prop bets on this for different NCAA tournament things. One of the things I saw was Arkansas to win it all plus 20,000. So I think that means if you bet $100, you win 20,000. I think that's how that works. But yeah, that's a big number. Actually, I think it's just if they make the national championship game. Anyway, go to Bet Saracen. You can see all the different options there. But Arkansas is plus 5 right now. That game is at 6:10 Central Time on CBS against the Kansas Jayhawks, the 7 seed Kansas Jayhawks versus the 10 seed Arkansas Razorbacks. We know how that game went earlier in the year. Arkansas, exhibition. 8 o'clock in Bud Walton Arena, October 25th. Arkansas won 85-69. Kansas was a little shorthanded. They've had their injuries. Arkansas has had their injuries this season as well. We'll go into more detail when we get Connor on here in a little bit. But if Arkansas can beat Kansas, then they're going to face the winner of St. John's and Omaha. St. John's is a hot team right now. That would be an interesting matchup. I mean, you've got some really interesting coaches right there as different possibilities with obviously Arkansas and Bill Self. In the first matchup. So could be some interesting matchups there. Missouri is also a possible Sweet 16 opponent for Arkansas if they were to advance. And in the bracket with Florida as the 1 seed. Kansas, quick look at them. Their last time out, they lost 88-77 to Arizona. They beat Arizona in the last game of the regular season, 83-76 in Lawrence, and then lost 88-77 in the Big 12 tournament. They also beat UCF in overtime, the 14 seed UCF Golden Knights. Houston recently lost to Houston, a 1 seed, 65-59, and lost to Texas. What is Texas Tech, like a 3 seed, 78-73. So those are some of their recent games. When I look at Kansas as a 7 seed, I think, okay, they're beatable. Like if I see Kansas as a 1, 2, 3, something like that, then I'm like, for some reason, if I see them as a 4, it's like, oh, they're a young, improving Kansas team. But I see them as a 7, it makes me feel like they're probably overrated a little bit. I don't know why that is. Kansas fans aren't thrilled about the matchup. I don't know if Arkansas fans are not. I mean, it's an opportunity to knock off Kansas. John Calipari is an underdog. Arkansas baseball getting underway today. We're not going to go into too much of that because it's in, just 50 minutes from now. And by the time the show ends, that game will start. But Arkansas facing Oral Roberts. They won the first game. What was the first game? I don't see it on here. But they won the first game. I can't remember what the score was. It was not a high-scoring game. But then this weekend they get South Carolina. South Carolina lost their opening series at home, 1-2 to Oklahoma. But that game – the first pitch for the first game is at 6:30 p.m. in Fayetteville. This is the home SEC opener. And then 2 o'clock on Saturday and then 2 o'clock on Sunday. But one more game against Oral Roberts before you get there. Okay. Football time. We'll get to Connor again here in just a moment. He's waiting patiently. I needed to bring this tab up real quick just to keep things in line, kind of outlined for me so I don't skip over anything. But I wrote an article recently, and I was kind of comparing things with this team in 2025 versus what they had in 2019. And really maybe more like last year's team, I guess, 2024 squad. Because last year, I feel like the 2024 team, if you'd have taken them and placed them in 2015, they probably would have been an 8, maybe even a 9-win team. Now, I do think that 2015 team is probably a little bit better than the 2024 team. Hear me out for a second. Is a little bit better, but not much better. And the reason is because of the way things are. Not the 10 guys that, were playing a pivotal role on that team that went to the NFL. Like, I'm not talking about, I wrote it all down. I mean, it's a pretty impressive list of names. Brandon Allen, Alex Collins, Dietrich Wise, Jeremiah Ledbetter, Denver Kirkland, Frank Ragnow, Dan Skipper, Sebastian Tretola, Hunter Henry, Jeremy Sprinkle. Jonathan Williams also was on that team, but he was injured all year. So that was a lot of NFL talent on that team, okay? But what you also have to remember, it's not because of those guys, but it's because of guys at other spots, okay? Dre Greenlaw was a true freshman on that team. He eventually went to the NFL, but I'm looking at it like guys that are really good players. Dre Greenlaw would not have played last year as a freshman on this team last year, okay? So you have to keep that in mind. He was a liability. As good as he became, he was a liability as a freshman. Brooks Ellis will tell you that year he came out of games and was unable to breathe because he was on the field so long, because they didn't have the same type of depth. They also had other holes where they had to plug in a freshman. If you didn't recruit well on the offensive line, or you misevaluated defensive backs in recruiting over a 2-year period, it would kill your team. Now you can just go out and get some guys in the offseason, okay? So the reason I don't think that last year's team was better than that 2015 team, close, is because of the offensive line last year. And there's also a number of NFL players. We have the benefit of looking back and seeing what those guys went on to do. But when I look at last year's team, Landon Jackson, definite NFL guy, possible NFL guys, Andrew Armstrong, Isaac Tesla, Eric Gregory. Looking now at guys that are still here, Taylon Green, possibly, Braylon Russell, Fernando Carmona, Cam Ball, Xavier Sori, Larry Worth, Luke Haas, not on the team anymore. Jalen Braxton, not on the team anymore. Patrick Kudus. So there's a good number of guys that have NFL potential that were on last year's team too. So, just to put that in perspective. But the reason I say that is because no matter what, in my comments on YouTube, there was a video of me talking about defensive backs and just going over who they got out of the portal. I didn't even say they were good or bad. And this guy was like, that's what you said last year, and the defensive backs sucked. Well, first of all, I didn't pick them to go 5-7 and have an awesome defensive secondary. That's ridiculous. But that's just kind of how things are. It doesn't matter that I explain how different teams are. So when I have to go out there and look at players, I have to remind myself also, okay, they look pretty good here. It's 2024. It's 2025. It's not 2015. Okay? Everybody has access to the transfer portal. Everybody's 75 to 81% of the teams in the SEC are going to be good at every spot. They're going to be good to go at every spot. So when I look out there and say, you know what, they might be okay at safety, you have to take that with everybody else is also going to be better at safety. I think Arkansas does have some pieces in place where they're going to have to improve in-game decision-making from Taylon Green, from Sam Pittman, which I think was improved last year, but still's got to improve further. Taking care of the football, not just making boneheaded, holding the ball in the end zone, against Texas Tech, when they're coming after you and you end up taking that safety, not taking 10-yard sacks when you're in field goal range, those kinds of things. Those kind of things have to change. Protecting the football, not being the team that has a bunch of procedure penalties. Those things have to change. Personnel, we can talk about all we want, being this or that, but those kind of things do have to change. So I want people to understand, when I say that sometimes I have to check myself and say, sometimes me saying good might mean 2015 good, and really it just means average. That 2015 team was 2 games short of where they should have been also. Should have beat Mississippi State. Should have beat Toledo. Yeah. But that was a good squad. They had a good enough team to win 9 or 10 games. So when I say, this team, if you put them back then, 2024 team, could have been an 8-win team. Everybody's teams was different back then, except for some of the elite, Alabama, Georgia types. Of course, Georgia wasn't Georgia then. Okay, let's talk about it. Position by position. Again, this is after 10 hours, 5 practices that I've been able to observe. A lot of live tackle stuff, probably 125 plays total. I know one day was 50 plays, so there were 2 other days. But I like what I see out of Larry Worth. I feel like Worth is the leader of the secondary right now. He's big, 6'4", 225. I know he can do a 40.8-inch vertical. He told me 41 inches. But I know last summer he did a 40.8. I know he's a 10.9 broad. You can see some of the plays that he makes. He had a play that was probably intended for a guy 12 yards past him when he was about 12 yards downfield himself, where he reached up and swatted it down. This was yesterday during team. I think he's got a lot of potential. And what's interesting, like you look at that last year's team, for all the problems that the secondary had, and it was a big problem. That 2015 team also, comparatively, they were last in the SEC. They were like 276 yards a game given up through the air. Okay, so they were also bad in the secondary in 2015. But the last year's team, I think one of the differences is, like, the 4 guys who started, not including Danico Slaughter at safety, who, by the way, ran a 4.38 at Arkansas Pro Day. The 4 guys that they started in the secondary at safety and the cornerback spots, and Jalen Braxton got hurt, but those 4 pretty experienced players were replaced throughout the season, all the way to the end of the season, by 4 other experienced players. And that is the power of the transfer portal. You had 4 experienced defensive backs, didn't feel like they were getting done slowly, especially with that Ole Miss game. That's probably where things really took a turn. And then the next thing you know, you've got 4 different guys starting in the secondary. It's pretty notable to be able to do that in this era. Now, this year, I think that they are a little light numbers-wise. I really like Larry Worth. I like Quintavious Scandrett. I think he reminds me a lot of Worth. He's also had a couple of, not just batted balls, but balls that look like they were going to be completion, and he goes up so high and swats them out. 2 times I saw him do that in the end zone. Miguel Mitchell, who played last year, was able to redshirt, only played in 5 games, including the bowl game. So I feel like they've got Caleb Wooden also, the transfer from Auburn, who's played a lot of football, obviously. But I feel like they've got 4 guys for 3 roles right now. J.J. Shelton, who's a true freshman, to probably be the next guy. I want to see him add another safety type in the transfer portal when the April window opens. I think it's April 16th. I want to see him. Connor, I'm sorry I'm going a little long, bud. I can see you there, but I just got started, so we'll go to Connor in just a second. He gives me the thumbs up. Okay. But I just wanted to get through all this. But I want to see him bring in another safety. I think you need to have 5 for those 3 spots, the 2 safety spots and the nickel. They've been kind of playing Caleb Wooden there. They've been playing Larry Worth there. I like Worth in the nickel spot. He's big and long and tall. He's fast. He can jump. I think that he can make up for probably some of the inability to mirror the wide receiver with some of that athleticism and range and jumping ability. Cornerback, I'm still, for whatever reason, Kenai Walker has eluded me. Like, I like to watch, when I'm watching them, like even when they're going live and stuff, during this kind of stuff, I like to watch one player, and I'll just focus on him and try to kind of almost just cancel out everything else and just watch one guy. And for some reason, Kenai Walker has kind of eluded me on focusing in on him, and I'm going to make sure I do that on Thursday. So I don't have a good evaluation on him. I have watched Keyshawn Davila quite a bit for some reason. He's at about 6'1", 165. I think he's probably a little bit too light for that nickel spot, but he's not a guy that's going to add 20 pounds either. Like, he's a pretty narrow built guy, but I like what I see out of him a lot. I think he was a really good pickup from junior college ranks, was the number 1 ranked cornerback prospect out of junior college. So I like what I see out of him. And then I think I like what I see out of Selman Bridges. They're certainly putting him in a position to take over one of those number 1 spots at cornerback. So I think that they have some pieces there. I don't know if it's enough yet. Jordan Young will be coming back, the transfer from Cincinnati. They have guys that have played a lot of football. I feel better about, I think, the starting group of safeties than I do at cornerback right now. The problem is You have got to have depth in this conference. Somebody's getting hurt somewhere. You've got to be able to rotate guys in to keep players fresh. So I don't know if they have that yet at cornerback. The secondary is probably, out of the three levels, probably number 2 right now for me in terms of, how good each group is. The number 1 group is linebacker. And I still want to see them add a linebacker. Last year, they added Steven Dix in the April portal window. They added Anthony Switzer in the April portal window. They also added, by the way, Larry Worth, who started off at linebacker, worked at nickel, then ended up at safety. So they can still get a guy. But like getting an Antonio Greer or a Anthony Switzer, maybe not a guy that is super highly coveted, but a guy that maybe competed at a Utah State or a South Florida that is a senior, a veteran who's racked up 100 tackles in a season like those guys had. Something like that, who wants to prove themselves on the major college level. Just an added level of security for depth. That's what I think that they could use at linebacker, because they have Xavier Sorey, they have Steven Dix, and we know both of those guys can play. Sorey, as we know, a little more rangy, athletic. Dix a little more compact, looking like he's ready to, hit a running back in the hole. So they have those two guys, and they're putting a lot of stock in Bradley Shaw. They'll be putting a lot of stock in probably Wyatt Simmons. Tavian Wallace, who's just a freshman. I'm not a big fan of freshmen playing, true freshmen. I think Wallace has a lot of potential. He's rangy. He's got, he's kind of in the middle of, Shaw and maybe Sorey, kind of in like ranginess versus stalkiness. But I don't want to see them rely on freshman linebackers. I want, even Bradley Shaw was, very highly coveted. They super high on him. He barely played last year. So go get another guy like that. Get a guy that you feel comfortable with, another veteran presence there. So they're not done in the transfer portal in that regard. Defensive line, same deal. Would like to see them add somebody inside. Would like to see them add somebody outside. If they don't add another player, I want to see them add an end, a really good, high-quality end. I think Quincy Rhodes is going to be okay. I think Charlie Collins has potential, but Collins, to me, needs to add some more weight. He's a little light. To be the size that he is, to me, he ought to be blowing past guys off the edge, just blowing past. Now, there was a weird play yesterday, where he's at end and he drops back into a zone, and I guess like zone match, and they had shifted Cam Shanks into the backfield and then ran him out on a wheel route. And, I heard Collins like, oh, like him going, oh, and then he's chasing Cam Shanks 60 yards downfield on a wheel route. And so he can run. But what I haven't seen yet is him just like zooming past guys. So I wonder, like, how ready is he? Does he need to get a little bit bigger? He was a very highly regarded recruit. I look at Kavion Henderson, and I like Kavion, but, he's 6'2". He's not very tall and rangy. I think he can provide quality time out there, but he's not super rangy. Justice Boone, I think, is maybe your best bet right now to start. 6'4", 266, a senior who's obviously played a good bit. He played at Florida. I look at him and I see a guy that maybe can give you like Nico Davier type of results. Nico wasn't like a huge sack guy, but he was, a pretty steady presence out there. Maybe he can be something like that. And then Quincy, I think you're looking at him and kind of hoping that he can be a guy for you. I don't know if he is just yet, but he's 6'6", 276 or so. He's got the size. He's a junior. He's been in the system for a while. But if they don't get anywhere else, I would like to maybe see them try to find a really good defensive end that is really coveted. Like, the problem is there's not a lot of those guys. There's not a lot of those guys in the world. There's not a lot of those guys in the portal. Nowadays with revenue sharing also, you'll see maybe some of these big schools just invest in their younger guys versus letting them go, because they have more money now with revenue sharing. So something to watch. Defensive tackle, I think kind of the same thing. I have liked what I've seen from Danny Saili after dropping 50 pounds. He's down to 325. That's 50 pounds he dropped. I've liked what I've seen out of him. I'd like to see Ian Jafar drop a little bit of weight, maybe 25. I just think that, like, can you get 25 quality snaps out of Ian Jafar as one of your top backups at defensive tackle? That's kind of what the question is. 25, 30 snaps out of him. Great snaps, where he's not sucking wind or anything, but he is huge. And he'll have a role definitely. Ahead of him, you've got Cam Ball, who has been out with he had shoulder surgery. We knew he was going to miss the whole spring. He's a potential NFL guy, so you've got a guy there. And then David Oki, the transfer out of Abilene Christian, had 64 tackles for them last year. That's a ton for a defensive tackle. So, that's kind of my thoughts. Like, I'm not overwhelmed with the defense. I think that they have some pieces. The problem in the secondary for me is depth overall. Do they have enough depth, especially at safety? I think they got some pieces at starting spots. I think they've got some pieces. Are they going to be a great secondary? I don't think so. Are they going to be capable? Maybe. I think they could be. Linebacker, again, would like to see a little more insurance with another veteran linebacker. Defensive line, not the same depth that they've had the last 2 years. They don't have the same depth on the defensive line right now. So we'll see how it goes on there. Okay, before I'm going to get to offense, but I have had Connor sitting here waiting. So, Connor, if you're ready, give me a thumbs up, and we'll go to you. And all right, we're going to bring Connor in. So we'll get back around to this. We'll do offense at the end, but we want to talk a little bit about the NCAA basketball tournament, and Connor is the guy to speak to about that. Connor, how's it going, man?
It's going. You didn't want to save the best for last, man?
Well, I wanted to break it up a little bit. It can get a little bit monotonous, I guess, if I just keep on with the same thing. So you've been taking a good look at this game. I know you've talked to Michael Swain over at the Kansas side on 24/7 Sports, got some insight from him. You've obviously been following this team all year and in the offseason and everything. Just curious about your initial thoughts when you saw Arkansas finally pop up on Selection Sunday, because it took a while, and what you thought about the matchup.
Well, my first thought was, oh no, because the two places my wife and I talked about not wanting to go to or being difficult for us to travel to the most were Providence and Seattle. And so having a lot of FOMO right now, not being up in Providence with the team, but I know my bank account really appreciates me not going this trip, especially if they do make it to San Francisco. I think that, and this is not really a statistical take or anything like that, this is more like just a gut feeling. It feels like either Arkansas loses tomorrow in disappointing fashion, or they end up going on a run to the Sweet 16 Elite Eight. Like, I just don't feel like that there's an in-between with this team. And it kind of fits with the theme of the season. Like, their potential is so high, and yet we've seen them for stretches, especially at the offensive end, just be a team that doesn't look like they belong on the court with anyone in the country. I think that this matchup, when I saw it against Kansas, oddly enough, I was talking to people on the message board and stuff, and Kansas was one of the more common opponents that some of the bracketologists had Arkansas against. And I thought it was one of the more favorable matchups, just because the fan base is so disappointed. I wouldn't say they're apathetic yet, but their fan base is not confident in this team at all. I feel like that from a matchup standpoint, Arkansas matches up well. They've got they're playing with the confidence, like Trevin Brazile, Jonas Adu coming along. They can kind of neutralize Hunter Dickinson, who's far and away their best players. And then you've got Nelly Davis, DJ Wagner, who all obviously can, handle their Kansas's front court really well. So, or back court really well. So I think that really boded well. And then obviously getting Boogie Flam back, that's another wild card. I think back to when JD Notae came along and he really first started to get his coming out parties with this Arkansas team a few years back. It was like, he was coming off the bench and he provided that scoring spark that Arkansas really lacked with their starting unit. I feel like that's going to be the best role for Boogie Flam. I've kind of felt like that all year, even before his injury. Now we're going to get to see him in that role. Arkansas, especially in those stretches, man, where they can't put anything into the basket, they need a scoring threat. They need a spark, and Boogie Flam can't be that. And so that's what I'm excited to see. Even if it's 10, 15 minutes, we've seen he's a firecracker. So I'm really excited. I think they match up really well with Kansas.
I think it's interesting. So many people have asked, how is he going to be as a shooter? Is he going to be able to shoot the ball? Is he going to have, all this stuff? But is he going to be able to cross people over? Is he going to be able to take somebody to the basket? Is he going to be able to palm the ball? if he needs to, like I
We
think those
still,
are questions too. Like all I hear is about is like, can he shoot? Well,
well,
I'm pretty sure he's going to be doing a lot of other things with that right hand.
and when he goes to the hole, that Kansas is going to, be physical, and I'm sure that they know they have assistants on their staff. They're, looking at the advanced stats that show that Boogie Flan's one of the worst guards finishing at the rim. So if they can, be physical, body him up, make him make tough layups at the rim, I'm really interested to see how he handles that first awkward fall, because throughout the season, it was like, every time he would go to the hole, he would catch a body and then fall really awkwardly, where everyone kind of is just like, is he going to be okay? And then, but yeah, that first fall, that first, physicality, it's going to be interesting to see how he responds.
Is he going to be able to break? Is he going to be able to brace himself? What if he has to put his hand down?
Yeah, exactly.
I know a story of somebody that is older, and they slipped on some ice, and they went down like this and didn't try to brace themselves, because they said all that they could think about in their mind as they were going down was a friend of theirs that broke both of their wrists and had to have somebody wipe their ass for them. But like, is he going to be thinking about that? Like when he goes down, like, am I going to, can he brace himself? Like there's all kinds of stuff like that. Like we can, you can go out and go through the motions and stuff and practice and, in a controlled environment. But, when it's people going hard, like the game is on the line, it counts, it's important. Like people are going to be physical, and, will it hold up then, or will it be in his head a little bit?
Yeah, and then one of the biggest question marks is with Boogie Flan early in the season was his ability to navigate screens and use them, effectively. Where as opposed to he'd just kind of go through the motions and he'd be a little too early letting the big get set on those screens and stuff, and just you factor in that mental part of it to see has he taken steps, is he going to be too much in his head that way, and then obviously there's that big devil on the shoulder saying don't land on your hand, don't land on your thumb. That's going to be really interesting to me. Can he kind of overcome that? Because with anyone coming back from injury, you've always got those thoughts deep in your head. Is this thing actually really good to go 100%? I'm really interested to see, say Boogie Flan comes in, gives them a really good scoring spark, late in the game. Does John Calipari roll with him, instead of, maybe DJ Wagner struggling a little bit, maybe Nelly Davis's shot isn't there. Does he go back to that lineup we saw, earlier in the season, the 3-guard lineup with, TB and Jonas or TB and Z? What does he do there? There's a lot of different factors that Boogie Flan, his adding him to the mix really brings. And I think that for Kansas, it's kind of good that they, didn't have extra time to really prepare, because it really does throw a wrench into things when you're looking at Arkansas, from a scouting standpoint.
All right, Connor, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen in this game? You got your bracket filled out. How many did you fill out, first of all?
I've gotten 3 filled out. I've got a couple of more that I'm
trying to win that $1 million.
Yeah. I mean, you can't.
I've done 3. Yeah. I do one with one group of friends, and then there's this other big bracket that this guy puts on that I do every year, and then the HawgSports bracket, of course.
Yeah, I usually sometimes some years I'll throw 10 or 15 brackets just at the board, just because I'm feeling good. But normally, like last year, I only did one bracket. It was my family bracket, because I said this is the one. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I didn't really, especially since Arkansas wasn't in it, you're just not really, in that, you're not feeling it as much, I don't feel like.
Sure.
But yeah, last year I only did one. It was my family. We usually play for a couple $100 there, but and it's an old school. There's something about filling in your bracket manually, like it just makes you feel it more, like you're more invested, I feel like. But yeah, no. So I'll probably by the end of this tomorrow before first tip, I'll probably have like 20 or something thrown out there, just because I'm gonna like that.
I'm gonna stick to 3. That's usually a good number for me, and then I always have one. Then I say like this is my, this is the one that I would consider my bracket.
There's always,
and it's usually the one in the biggest money one.
Yeah, there's always those toss-up games that it's like, well, I'm just gonna copy this bracket, but have that other game switch, because that's gonna be the one that throws out, and then I just you kind of spiral, and
100%.
You look up, it's midnight, and you have 25 brackets, and you're like, what the hell have I been doing?
Yeah, I used to like doing the the player pool, but we quit doing it once I broke the code on it. I had a group of guys, like a dozen of us, and where you go and you draft players from each team, and then you total up the points. Well, I figured eventually that as long as I have, if I pick all players from one team, if that team plays in 5 games, then you win. Or let's see, if they go to, I don't even think they have to get to, they may not have to get to the Final Four even. But I had this formula, and so for 3 out of 4 years, I picked a team that advanced that far and won the money every time. And so I kind of destroyed the player draft. So anybody out there who's wondering about that, find you one of the 1 seeds, and it doesn't even have to be their top 5, but just 5 guys who score, and make that your team. See what happens.
Take an easy way out,
Yeah. I'm trying to get that money, man.
Yeah.
Trying to get paid.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
I had a friend back in college one year when Kentucky won the national championship. I think it was, what'd they win, maybe 96. But he filled out straight seeds. And I think the only thing he did differently was, I don't think Kentucky was the 1 seed, but I think that's the only thing he did different was having Kentucky win it all. And he filled out straight seeds for our whole fraternity house and won. That's how different things are now. Yeah, straight seeds. Okay, so you think you like Arkansas on this one, Connor?
I think so. I think that it's going to be one of those frustrating games where Arkansas looks like world beaters for a stretch, and then they have one of those patented stretches late in the second half where Kansas kind of wheels himself back into it, and then can Arkansas make the plays down the stretch? I mean, Kansas is a really good defensive team. They're 11th in KenPom in the country in defensive efficiency. One thing that I found really interesting in Arkansas's last 10 games, they were the best defensive team in the SEC for the last 10 games of the season. So these two teams are really, they lean on their defense. They've kind of made a name for themselves at the defensive end. It's really who can get one to fall when they need it. I mean, really the keys to this game are simple for both teams, honestly. Which team can find success against an elite defense? Which team is going to be able to figure out their offense quicker and more often than the other team, and that's who's going to come out on top. Do you have faith that Arkansas is going to be able to figure it out? Do you have faith that Boogie Flan's going to come in and really change things at that end of the floor? Or do you think that they're going to resemble what they did in the second half against South Carolina, where they couldn't put it in the ocean, standing on the beach for 11 minutes, 6 minutes against Ole Miss? Which team do you believe is going to show up tomorrow? And, from what I've seen from the team going through practice and stuff, the vibes are really high. The morale looks really good. I'm interested to see what that is kind of like for Kansas. Their fan base is not really confident in this team at all. So, that kind of lends me to think that the Pig's going to get it done, man. But it is March. Who knows? I don't know that I really don't know that we are going to be sitting here talking about either a deep run. Like I said, this team can go on a run to Sweet 16, Elite 8, or they're going to lose tomorrow, and everyone's going to kind of be, disappointed, saying that the season is it's a disappointment. It was a failure, blah, blah, blah. Just win a game, see where it goes. I mean, that's all you can do. Survive and advance, like the motto that every team takes on this time of year. Survive and advance, and we'll see where things go.
All right. Last thing, Connor.
All right.
Who you got winning it all in your main bracket, not any of the other 19? But the
I
main.
have jumped on the Florida bandwagon. I think that they're playing the best basketball of anyone in the country. There's too many question marks with Auburn. They've looked really, very human of late. They've looked very beatable. Duke with Cooper Flag, what are they going to look like? Houston, can you really trust Houston? It seems like they're always a 1 or 2 or 3 seed, and then they get to Sweet 16, Elite 8, and they just get a terrible matchup, and then they can't really, get over that hump. I like Florida. It's hard to really see where their weaknesses are. They're just a really good all around team. They're playing the best of anyone in the country right now. So give me the.
I'll tell you why, Connor. I'm not for Florida, because they don't have the overarching basketball history that Arkansas does. Mm-hmm. They have won 2 national championships. They've been to 3 Final Fours or 3 championship games.
Yeah,
they won with Mike Miller, and then the 2 national championships later.
with Noah Horford Brewer.
What, Arkansas been to 6 Finals Fours? Is that right?
I believe so. I had it somewhere.
But Arkansas has you could argue that Arkansas has a better basketball tradition than Florida does because of, going back into the 70s and all that kind of stuff, winning 1 national championship, more Final Fours, more Elite Eights, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If Florida wins the national championship, then they have a clear stake as the number 2 team in the SEC, a clear stake.
Yeah.
Over Arkansas. I damn sure don't want Auburn to have a national championship and be tied with Arkansas for national championships, or Alabama,
Yeah.
Or Tennessee. So Tennessee's got a pretty good basketball tradition, but they have.
If I really would have thought about that, I would have talked myself out of it. But
yeah, that's where I think that's like how my mind works. Like, so if it's not going to be Arkansas, then no SEC team unless it's. I don't want it to be Kentucky, obviously, but not that I'd love anybody winning it. I'm just saying, like, if Duke won, I would be fine with that. I would be fine with it.
I don't think that I've ever rooted for a Troy Trojan team more in my life than I am rooting for them this week.
I can remember being a kid rooting for Duke back when they had Bobby Hurley and stuff, against Kansas, and just because they weren't underdogs, but they were kind of underdogs. They were they weren't the Duke that they are now. Back then, I can remember thinking of them like that, and then they everything just transformed for them. But even rooting for them against UNLV back in the day.
I feel like the energy that college basketball fans had for Duke in the 90s needs to be transferred to Kentucky now. Their fan base, man. I'm sure we might get a couple in here, but
hugging Ole Miss fans at the tournament because they beat Calipari. Yeah,
I thought at the SEC tournament, I thought that I had a row of Ole Miss people behind us. I looked back and it was 3 rows deep of Kentucky fans that
just
were literally living and dying on every Ole Miss basket. I was just like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And like they were, they found all the Ole Miss students they were hugging and stuff. So I was trying to get back to the back. I was just like, what? This is the weirdest. Like, I just can't imagine being that, insecure. And
I can imagine it. I can imagine being that insecure.
But it's just. So
I think I've probably been there.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think we would probably feel. I mean, when Houston Nutt left, I think, I don't know if it was the same way necessarily. I'm trying to think of something similar, but I'm guilty of rooting for people to fail.
Yeah. But the thing is that they wanted him gone. It's like they wanted Calipari.
They want to prove that they were right.
Yeah, that's what it comes
everybody
down to.
Once you dig your heels in on something, you want to feel like you're with the right team, with the right group, that you made the right decision. People like being right.
True. It was just, man, that's just weird. So and just my dealing with the people that cover Kentucky, especially over the 24/7 site, I haven't gotten that energy. They're great guys and stuff. It's usually the loudest vocal minority that people think that it represents the whole of the fan base. So
yeah.
But that's just my experience with it, and so
I will say this stuff. Like, there used to be always this kind of narrative, is like, it's the vocal minority. It's just people on the internet. It's not real people. And I'm just like, everyone's on the internet. Everybody's here.
Yeah.
All right, Connor.
All right, go talk about the Arkansas offense and how good Monte Harrison and Ismail Cece look.
That's where I'm going. Yeah. All right, brother. Talk to you later.
All right. See ya.
All right, everybody. Follow Connor at Connor Goodson, ConnorGoodson on X and other social media platforms, of course. And read all of his stuff at HawgSports. HawgSports is just $1 for your first month. Don't pay any attention to this below. You can sign up for 30% off if you want to for the annual subscription. But the best deal that we offer is you sign up for $1, in my opinion. You test us out. Test us out. Come check out what we got. I promise it's not what you think. I promise it's better than what you think it is. It's one of the reasons we're one of the largest sites in the entire country at HawgSports, HawgSports.com. But come sign up for $1. Try us out for a month. If you like it, go to the full price plan. And the beauty of the full price plan is once you're on that, you get Paramount Plus for absolutely free. All the movies Paramount ever made, all the TV shows that come out, all of that great stuff, everything else that comes out on Paramount. It's right there at Paramount Plus for absolutely free for as long as you're subscribed. Subscribe with us for 10 years down the road. You'll have had Paramount Plus for 10 years. So it's a heck of a deal. Both Paramount and HawgSports is right at about $100, both of them. So you're getting something for free, no matter how you look at it. All right. You guys ready to hop back over to this football thing? All right. We've covered the defense. Kicker, I would say Scott Starzik has the biggest leg. I don't know what's between his ears yet, but he can boot the ball. He's got a nice big leg. So we'll see. And he seems accurate in practice. Like he makes his field goals. Just don't know when, you're on the road, in Knoxville and it's a game-winning kick, what he's got. So we'll see on that. But he's got a good leg. I do know that. Okay, we're on to let's start off with the offensive line. Okay. So Shaq McCroy, I think a lot of people think that, once this guy gets everything down and gets comfortable and gets his technique, gets some coaching and stuff, his natural ability, he's going to end up being a really good player. I would argue that he has a chance to be a really good player without all those things just because of his natural ability. Like, nobody's getting around this guy. I'm out there watching, and he almost looks casual, like how he's moving people out of the way. I have not seen him struggle against anybody. Nobody's like speed rushing past him. Nobody's just getting around him. Nobody's overpowering him. And he's so huge. Like, I've said this before, but if Amarian Harris is 6'7", 300 as he's listed, then Shaq McCroy is 6'9" or better. He looks like you're looking at a high school team and there's one guy who's a college level prospect on the offensive line. That's what it looks like out there. It's amazing how these guys who are otherwise massive look so small next to this guy. I mean, he is the biggest player that I have covered at Arkansas. And I know, like, I've said that and people are like, well, Dan Skipper is 6'10". Dan Skipper was not like as massive as this guy is. And this guy, I think, is probably 6'9". Corey Robinson said he's all of 6'9". And I saw him standing next to Corey Robinson. Corey Robinson looks little. Like, it's crazy how big this dude is. Like, is this – and, like, I know it's like, other teams have – like, not a lot of people have a guy as big as this. But he's the biggest one. When you consider the combination of his height and his size, his overall size and his build, he's the biggest guy that I've ever covered in a Razorback uniform. Tallest guy is Dan Skipper, obviously. Heaviest guy is Ian Dreffard, 389. But it might have been Devon Manuel. Devon Manuel might have been 400 plus. Devon Manuel might have been 400 plus. Devon Manuel was big. He's not as big as Shaq McCroy. What was Devon Manuel? What is his height and weight? That's a good thing to consider. But Devon was not built nearly the same way. It was not built the same way. Manuel's listed at 6'7", 319 now. When he got to Arkansas, he had to be 400 pounds. But he was carrying all of it up top, not in the legs, really. Just a different build. This dude looks very comfortable at 362. Like, I wouldn't look at him and say he needs to lose weight. I would be like, don't mess with him too much. So, like him a lot on the right side. He is going to end up starting at right tackle. I just don't see any other way around it. I liked on Tuesday, we saw a little bit of Amarian Harris at right guard with Shaq at right tackle. For the most part, it's been Amarian as the right tackle, and Shaq does go in with the first group. I think you could have a really interesting battle at right guard with Amarian Harris, with Kobe Branham, and with Keyshawn Blackstock. If I'm picking right now, I kind of feel like they really like Kobe Branham. If everything's equal, I kind of think go with the younger guy, right? But right now, it's been Keyshawn Blackstock at the starting right guard spot for the most part. In past practices, I have seen Branham in that right guard spot also with the first group some. So I think you've got an interesting battle potentially brewing at right guard once they inevitably decide that Shaq McCroy is their starting right tackle, which they will. Caden Kittler, it appears he is the center, 6'3", 307. I have not I have not watched him just a whole lot focusing on him, and I need to do that too. He's another guy that I want to really just like kind of zero in on and just watch how he performs. I haven't noticed a lot of errant snaps or anything. I haven't noticed any from him. Cash Courtney, the freshman offensive lineman, I did notice a bad snap from him one day. Somebody else had one, but it hasn't been Caden Kittler, the transfer from UCF, who's logged a lot of starts in his career, has 2 more years of eligibility remaining also. Left guard is Fernando. I like watching Carmona and Corey Robinson. I think that those two guys are friends. I think they really get along. I think it's a nice tandem to have right there, because I have considered, like, if Caden Kittler isn't one of your top 5 offensive linemen, do you then move Fernando Carmona to center, and then you have a Marion Harris and Kobe Brannon or Blackstock or something like that at the 2 guard spots. I have really liked, like, they do this kind of stuff, like when they're working on a double team or something and it's their turn to go and they'll get up and line up, you'll see them like slap hands before they put their hands down. Like they're in cahoots with each other. I feel like they worked out a lot in the off season together. It just happened on accident. They just happened to be in there getting extra work, and the next thing you know, they're going in all the time together, working out together. So it seems like they've really hit it off. And Corey Robinson has not given up a sack, he says, since 2022. I don't know if that meant he'd never given up a sack, but he was a 91.2 pass blocking grade on Pro Football Focus. That's the highest in the country for Power 4 teams. He wasn't playing SEC defensive ends, but he was playing, he was at Georgia Tech. It's not like he was playing chop liver. He was in the ACC playing some good defensive ends. Obviously, the level steps up here. But Corey Robinson, he's not a massive, like he's 6'5", which to me is like, you don't need to be any shorter if you're an offensive tackle unless you're like freakishly long arms or something. But 6'5" seems to usually be about the cutoff for an offensive tackle. And he's not like super heavy or anything, but he's athletic and he's quick. He moves well. Like you can tell he's been around a little bit. I do think that they are going to be better on the offensive line. I don't know how much better yet. And I'm looking at them not so much like they're going against this defensive line that doesn't have 2 potential starters, that's trying to figure some things out. I look at them just kind of watching them individually and just kind of canceling everything out. Like, how do they move? How are they built physically? How do they look in their drills and those kinds of things? So there was a lot of miscommunication problems on the offensive line last year. I don't think that Eric Mateos inherited a very good situation on the offensive line. It was better than it was the year before, but it just wasn't very good overall. So last year, 2 years ago, bad offensive line. Last year, below average offensive line. This year, average to above average. I think they could be. I think it's possible. And if they are above average, then I think they're going to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to have success being able to run the ball because you still have Taylon Green, who can take off, got to stay healthy. Can't jam his knee into the ground like he did last year and have that affect him. But Taylon Green's, ability to run, that combined with what I have been pleasantly surprised with Mike Washington. I think they have 2 quality backs, Mike Washington, Braylon Russell. Braylon Russell is the kind of guy that if he stays healthy, he could be a 1,000-yard back. If he's got the right protection up front, if there's enough threats everywhere else, they don't just zero in on him. But Mike Washington, to me, what I was expecting out of Mike Washington, because I couldn't find any individual highlights, just like full game tapes, I was expecting a guy that wasn't quite 6'2", 223 as he's listed, that wasn't that fast, and that was probably a little stiff in the hips, probably a little bit stiff. He's been better in all those categories than I expected. I feel like he is 6'2", 223. I feel like he's pretty fast. I feel like he moves well. I feel like he's got, kind of runs like he's got something to prove. I like the addition of Mike Washington. Braylon Russell down to 238. That's 15 pounds. He's going to lose 8 more, play at about 230 next year. That's his goal. I think that'd probably be a good weight for him. Maybe increase his ability to break off big runs. A.J. Green ran for 400 yards. So I think that they are all right at running back. You need 3 you feel good about. Rodney Hill looked like he's at a little bit of weight. But so far I'm encouraged with what I've seen on the offensive line, what I've seen at running back. Defense, I'm just not there yet. I like some of the things that they have going on at safety, and that was an area that I was a little concerned with. And not that they're going to be great. I'm not saying like anybody's going to be great at any particular level, except for maybe starting linebackers. I think they could be really good. But I think that they have capable personnel, if that makes sense. Like capable players who have played a good bit of football in their careers. Maybe we're talking about a fringe NFL guy or two, but certainly not like somebody who's going, early in the NFL draft. Although if Larry Worth has a good season, like he will test off the charts, like height, like kind of like Isaac Tesla tested off the charts as a wide receiver. Like he had one of the best wide receiver RAS scores ever, relative athletic score ever. Matt Jones had a 9.99. Tesla had, I think, a 9.97 at the NFL Combine. But Larry Worth as a safety would have those kind of numbers because he is so big, because he can jump so high and so far, and I assume run pretty well also. All right, so we've covered offensive line. We've covered running back. Let's talk about quarterback. Now, I did not think that Talon had a very good day on Saturday. I thought he struggled. And, like, they do this drill where it's offense versus defense, team, live tackle. We're going to start from the minus 37-yard line. You've got 50 seconds. You got to get us in field goal range. You got 2 timeouts. That's the drill. I think Arkansas ended up probably in about a 4th and 12 with no first downs. No, they went 4 and out. Okay, so that's, this is an offense that we're talking about. It's like supposed to be so far ahead of what the defense is, and the defense stopped them like that. Then the second group comes out there, and they get a first down. KJ Jackson to Monte Harrison for like 11 yards, and then the next 4 plays don't go anywhere, and then they get stopped. And it's over. So the defense won in that scrimmage situation both times, first and second group. But KJ, what I always said last spring was like there were days where he was Talon, getting old, guys. Talon, to me, like last year, started off very strong, and then there was like 5 days of practice where it was just like, he does not look very good. It does not look very comfortable right now. And maybe it was processing some things, but that's kind of how I felt Saturday, because I felt like the first 3 practices leading up to that, he was really sharp, really in command, really comfortable, looked just different than all the other quarterbacks. But Talon has, the physical attributes are there. He's tall, he's fast, he's got a really good arm. He has got all those physical attributes. There are some, choices that he's made from time to time on, throwing the ball, but he's also got to get better protection. And like, if you think about some of the critical moments that happened last year, the Oklahoma State game, how did that game turn? He took a shot. He was throwing a crossing pattern. He took a shot. It ended up being a pick 6 interception. That was a game-changing moment because he took a shot because the protection wasn't there. Texas A&M, a couple times, he's hit before he can make the handoff. 2 critical plays. LSU, somebody's in the backfield, Weeks swats the pass down, interception at the 2-yard line, game-changing play. It was a game before that. So, like, he's got to get better protection. I know I always say this, but for those who have not heard it, just think to this Justin Fields clip on ESPN one time when he was at Ohio State, and the guy's talking about how impressive he is. I know I say this all the time, but I think about it all the time when people talk about quarterbacks. He goes from his first progression to his second, his third read, his fourth, his fifth. Look at the maturity. Look at the poise in the pocket. And I'm going 2004, 2006, 2008. Yeah, of course he looks comfortable and poised. He knows nobody's hitting him because he's got great protection. He can go through all of his reads, of course. Something else I've been saying recently, if Patrick Mahomes played against the Philadelphia Eagles every game of his career, everybody talk about how bad he sucked. Not about being maybe the GOAT, but about how bad he is. But it's because of protection. So if his protection's better, no matter what he has done in terms of improvement, his understanding of the offense, all of those things, if his protection's better, he could stay the same as he was last year, and he's going to be a much better quarterback. But some things, you got to improve on. How many times was Isaac Tesla wide open and he didn't see him? Stuff like that, holding on to the ball a little bit too long. Seems like when he would take a sack, it's not a 3-yard sack, it's a 10-yard sack on 3rd down when, you had an easy field goal and now you got a more challenging field goal. A lot of stuff like that. Batnia Maliava has come along a lot. I really like what I've seen from him from day 1 to now, practice 5. A lot better looking quarterback. Good velocity. I mean, he's hitting open receivers. I mean, what else can you ask for from a freshman quarterback? But he's clearly the number 3 quarterback right now. It's Talon, KJ Jackson, Madden Maleava. Without a doubt, that's the first 3 right now. Tight end, I don't love the room overall. I do love Rohan Jones. I think that they may have gotten a bargain Luke has with this guy. I don't know that he will be as good as Luke has when Has is totally healthy, but I think he's going to be close. He is physically put together, like this guy, bodybuilder looking type of guy, like triceps, biceps, thighs, like put together, you know. So he's probably what is he? 6'3". I need to see what he is. 6'3", 246. That's what I'm guessing. Am I right? Get your bets in right now. Number 88, 6'3", 236. I was 10 pounds off. But that just kind of gives you an idea, like that I would think that he's 10 pounds heavier than he is because he's put together. But guy runs really well. He catches the ball well. You can go back and look at his highlights from Montana State. You can see the guy knows how to make plays, knows what to do when the ball's in his hands. So like what I see out of Rohan Jones, you know, Andreas Poshka is, you know, he's a blocker. He's a extra offensive tackle. He can catch passes when nobody expects him to catch a pass, that kind of guy. Like they're not throwing to him, you know, throw to him. Catches 2 touchdowns against Mississippi State, that kind of thing. I haven't seen anything from Jaden Platt that makes me go, yep. So, but I like Jones a lot. Like, in fact, I could see him as being a guy that you look for in a lot of ways. I'm not in love with the room overall at tight end. And wide receiver is a little different because I like a lot of guys. I don't just love them. You know what I mean? Like, I like Raylan Sharp. He's listed at 5'9", 165. I don't think he's shorter than that. Like, I don't think it's like, I'll just list him at 5'9", you know, because he's 5'6" or something. He's 5'9", I would say. Guy that plays with a real chip on his shoulder. Started off at Houston as a walk-on. Played some, caught passes there, and then transferred to Montana State and caught like 70-something passes, and then transferred to Fresno State, caught 50-something passes, and now at Arkansas. Now, I haven't seen him until yesterday like make an exceptional play. What he does is he gets open and he catches it. He doesn't do anything spectacular afterwards or before. Like if the defense plays great coverage on him, then, you know, they probably win the battle. But like, to me, what he has done is gotten open and caught the ball. Now, I did see him yesterday. I don't know how he pulled it down because it's in traffic, and he goes up, and the ball is thrown probably 35 yards downfield, and he goes up, I think it was right hand, and catches it and just never stops his stride and goes all the way in for a touchdown. And there are a ton of people around him. I don't know how he caught it. Like, he never broke stride going up and catching it in a crowd. So he's got a lot of confidence, I think, catching the ball. But so far, I like him maybe best, but I'm also giving consideration to Monte Harrison and Ismail Cisse. Harrison, I don't know if it's fool's gold or not, but he, to me, has shown the best ability to be a playmaker type, like a guy that's going to catch a 50-50 ball, that's going to outwork a defensive back who's in position, you know, that kind of guy. And he's bigger. He's the only guy that's bigger, you know, like 6'3 plus. So he has been a guy that they've thrown the ball to a lot. And then I wonder about Ismail Cisse, because Cisse, I feel like starting off, he might have been my number one. But Cisse is kind of like Sharp in a lot of ways, but maybe a little bit bigger, but not super big. This is a much smaller group of wide receivers than what we've seen in recent years. But Cisse kind of does the same thing, gets open, catches the ball. Cam Shanks, probably my next guy after those three, who, you know, maybe I don't think Shanks is quite as polished, or maybe quite just a little bit smaller than Sharp, but they're very similar. But I might say Sharp, Shanks, like that. But I do think Shanks maybe has a good chance to be a punt returner because he is quick and shifty. You know, then I'm probably talking Omega Blake, C.J. Brown, you know. Courtney Crutchfield did have a really nice grab. It was against the air, but it was, you know, behind his back, one-handed. That's probably the best thing I've seen out of him so far. I haven't seen a guy that I'm like, this guy is going to be the playmaking wide receiver. I haven't seen that yet from Courtney Crutchfield. The guys that I mentioned, that's probably the order. It's probably Raylan Sharp, and then Monte and Ismail Cisse, Omega Blake, CJ Brown, probably something like that. Okay. I think that's everything. All right, so here's the deal. We've got one more practice on Thursday. I hope I'm out of there. I hope it's over because they're going to do a lot of scrimmaging. I hope it's over before the game starts at 6:10. Yesterday, I think they wrapped up at about 5:45. So if they do that, then it should give me enough time to get out of there. Obviously, I would do all of my story stuff after the game when I watch the game. And then it's spring break. So you've got really – is baseball going next week? It's a good question, Trey. I know it is. I mean, I'm really just sitting here all alone. I mean, I'm talking to you guys, but sometimes I think about it like I'm really just talking to myself right now in a way. All right, let's see. Arkansas baseball schedule. Obviously, you got the NCAA tournament going on Thursday. If they win, they play again on Saturday. Yeah. Well, I just outlined it. They play a 3-game series against South Carolina. Then spring break technically starts on the 24th, but they do play the 25th. They play Missouri State. So no break for the baseball team. That was stupid for me to even think that. I don't know why I did. Of course, they're going through spring break. So football team off, basketball team hopefully on, and baseball team is on. All right, I want to thank Connor Goodson for hopping on, providing us all the insight for the Razorback basketball game. But baseball has started, so I know a lot of you guys want to flip over to that now, so we're going to wrap up the show. I hope you learned some stuff from football. If you want to learn more, I write a lot more stuff. I go into a lot more detail after each practice and stuff. You can go to HawgSports, $1 for your first month, HawgSports.com. Come check us out. All right, everybody. Appreciate you for joining me, and we'll see you on the other side. This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. We'll catch you next time.